Welcome to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show, where we explore nighttime dreams, daytime desires, and the best ways to transform the tragic into magic. Because let's face it, we all dream, we all have our blessings, and we all have our challenges, myself included. And I don't want any of us to take any of those things lying down, if you know what I mean. I just wrote a book entitled A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. I'm excited to explore the topic with you, whether it relates to your waking or sleeping dreams, because we're dreaming all the time, people. So let's make it the best dream possible. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. And welcome to the show today. I am so excited to talk to you about Lauren Z. Schneider. So Lauren, besides being a dear friend of mine, she is the creator of Tarotpy. She has this innovative approach to spiritual psychotherapy over the course of 3 decades, which integrates traditional psychotherapy practices with mystical tools such as tarot cards. Her methodology has come to be known as Tarotpy. So that's not me mispronouncing it in an Irish accent, but it's tarot therapy. And in addition to individual consultations, Lauren lectures worldwide and facilitates trainings, workshops, and ongoing groups for therapists and laypersons in dream work and therapy. Interweaving psychology and imagery has been Lauren's consistent passion. As an undergraduate, she trained in Paris at the Sorbonne in semiology, which explores the underlying meaning in films through the lens of psychoanalysis. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa from UC Berkeley and spent several years in film production with her husband, Sasha Schneider. Lauren produced and edited a documentary, Chuppah, The Wedding Canopy, that explores how the trauma of the Holocaust and the resilience of love is transmitted through generations in a family. Their film won Best Feature Documentary at the Santa Barbara Film Festival in '94. She continues to facilitate healing ancestral trauma through her work with dreams and therapy. And there's so much more to say about her, but I want you all to know that by the end of the show, she's going to be letting you in on a free event that she's got coming up about how you can learn more about Tarotpy and also how you might explore becoming a therapy practitioner. I don't know if that's the exact terminology, but
Exactly.
Lauren, I always have such magical conversations with you. It's never just about nail polish and the weather. It's always like right to the soul. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored and always a joy to talk to you.
So one of the things you and I discussed was collective dreaming. And also if people are watching and or listening to this anywhere close to real time, we've just had a big election in the United States, and there's a lot of divisiveness going on between family members, among all kinds of people. And it's kind of it's always a hard time to be a human. I mean, there's always a lot of stuff going on, but this seems to be one of those really kind of important times to figure out another way or to figure out how to deal with it. And one of the ways that you and I talked about was in collective dreaming. So do you want to tell people what is collective dreaming and maybe give them a sample of one of your big dreams? Let's just dive into the deep end.
Sure, let's dive in. So, I'm imagining because we're really in a huge transformation, I'm imagining other people have been having big dreams. I've been having big collective dreams for since the late 90s. And what a collective dream is, or a big dream is, it feels bigger than just your personal material. And you know it because it tends to be more vivid. It's unlike any sort of normal dream. And it's got material that is picking up what's going on in the zeitgeist. So I'll start with the dream that I had in 2012, which
Right.
is that I was in the Empire State Building with a dream teacher, a man named Robbie Bosnick, who's a pioneer in dream work. And Robbie says to me, the self doesn't develop fully until one immerses oneself in the collective. Now, that's a little complex, but basically, we don't do this alone. The self, the individual develops once we immerse ourselves in the collective. And so we're all part of this big dream that we're having collectively. At that moment, I look down and I see that the Empire State Building is on stilts. And the next thing I know, I'm in the ocean and I see a tsunami coming toward me. And I think, oh, so this is what it is to die. It's only the transition that is scary. I
Mm.
know the Empire State Building will be knocked over by a tsunami. And I wake up and I say, oh, the Empire State Building knocked over by a tsunami is about the state of the empire. The empire is in collapse.
Oh,
So that's a big dream.
yeah. Oh, I love, oh, wow. Okay, that the empire is in state. I love that you immediately go to the word play, which is such an important part of dream work, I believe. But I loved the wisdom that you received, two bits of really important wisdom around a cataclysmic event. And this was around, did you say this was around 9/11?
So this was 2012. And that's an
Okay.
interesting time because it
Yeah.
was the end of the Mayan calendar. But it's also interesting
Right.
that you brought up 9/11
Yeah.
because it has the same symbolism.
Mm,
We're in a tower archetype. The
yeah.
Empire State Building collapsing is a tower archetype. And a tower archetype is that established structures collapse. Established structures and concepts are being shaken up. And I knew when I had that dream that the United States would be shaken to its foundation. 9/11 is also a tower archetype in the waking world, right?
Mhm.
So towers
Absolutely.
collapsed.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. That's what the prescient dream, that was an event that described a decline that's happening in our empire. So I
Mm.
continue to have big collective dreams around some of these big shifts, like the 2016 election.
Oh, and so can you share about that dream?
I will, but before I go there, if you don't mind, I want to
Sure.
say that when I had the dream in 2012 of the Empire State Building collapsing, I pulled cards. So I used
Okay.
Tarotpy to get further guidance on the dream. And the cards that came up were exactly the images of the dream. So, are you able to pull up those cards?
Oh, yeah, let's see. Let me see. Let's make this
There we go.
let me see if
And
I
it's
can
the
make this
first
yeah.
set.
Yeah, so talk
If,
about these cards. These were
well,
the
if
cards
you
that
can
you
go
pulled.
back to the first set, if you can scroll down,
Oh, these are the only ones I have.
uh, actually, you had pulled up some other ones first. Well,
Oh,
there
oh,
they are.
sorry. There we go. Sorry about that.
It's
Yep.
okay. So, if your audience can see these, one
Mhm.
card on the left is the Tower card,
Mm.
and it is a tower collapsing.
Wow. Not
Interestingly
just
enough,
collapsing, but there's fire. It's not
there's
just like, "Oh."
fire. Yeah, there's a figure that's like a Midas figure. And we know
Mhm.
the mythology of Midas, that he was so attached to
Mm.
gold
Right.
that everything he touched turned to gold until he destroyed everything he touched. And so not only is this the Tower card, but this card from the Voyager deck was created in 1983. And James Wanless, who created the deck, used the Twin Towers for the Tower card.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So prescient of exactly what happened in 9/11. And then on the right, you see a young woman falling into the ocean. So
Mm.
exactly the images of my dream came up in therapy.
So
And
what
I,
keep going.
okay, so these images became like a scaffolding to hold me as I knew we were going through huge transformation. And I began to use therapy as well as my dreams to guide me and to talk to others about the transition we're in.
Mm.
So
Wow.
we're all experiencing an upheaval of our socio-political norms. And I believe that on one level, it's the upheaval of the physical world of our socio-political norms. At another level, it's a consciousness change. So we'll get there.
Hmm.
But first, we have to go through the collapse of established structures because that kind of chaos is part of the transition to something new that wants to be
Mm.
born.
Oh, wow. I think about, I don't know if it was Joseph Campbell that said this, but sometimes at the beginning of a hero's journey, the hero's journey begins when the kingdom is in ruin. Like it marks the beginning. Sometimes the hero's journey begins because you're inspired to leave the kingdom, but often we get kicked out and
Exactly. That the
can't go back.
hero's journey usually, exactly, the hero's journey will begin as a crisis. And a
Right.
crisis and chaos, we have to remember,
Mm,
is what happens when you're in the transition to something new that wants to be born.
right. Sometimes the word crisis, the wordplay of that, I think of it's a cry for ISIS, not the terrorist organization, but the goddess. A
Oh my
crisis.
goodness. Oh, Kelly, that's so wonderful because we're going to get to her.
Yes,
She
we are.
showed up with therapy.
Oh my,
Yes.
is she on one of the other slides? Oh, there we go.
Yes, there she is.
Okay.
So, shall I jump forward to another dream or
Y-
should we talk about this
Well,
therapy?
okay. Let's pause that for just a moment. Let me see. Okay.
Okay.
I
So,
just go ahead.
please go ahead.
Well, I'm just what feels so important here is for people, for myself to hang on to the transition is the hard part. The
Yes.
the getting once we arrive in the new territory, we acclimate ourselves. And before the transition, when we were in familiar territory, we were fine. But it's the transition. I just was working with a client the other day who has recurring dreams about hallways. And to me, hallways like bridges or any kind of it's a transition. It's not the destination. The destination is never the hallway, but you have to leave wherever you were, whatever room you were in, and travel down this hallway, and then you find another place, but it might be different than you expected, and there's all kinds of insecurity. Will I find the right space? Will the right door open for me? And will I get stuck here forever? And I think it's so important that if we know, just like with seasons, that we know winter won't last forever. We know the rain, the storms aren't going to last forever, that they have a beginning, middle, and end. And then there's the what's next. We don't have to completely freak out as much as we might
Exactly.
otherwise.
Exactly. And I think that the value of working with dreams and therapy and the I Ching, any of these divination tools, is that it helps us to see the bigger forces that are at work. So we're not just
Right.
stuck in the moment because it's never comfortable to be stuck in the hallway.
Right.
So these will show us what is wanting to evolve beyond what we see in the immediate.
Mm. All right. So this brings us to therapy. Let's talk a little bit about that. So here's this incredible award-winning book, Therapy. It's all in the cards, a pathway to inner wisdom, divine guidance, and profound healing. You put so much into this book, Lauren. There's deep personal stories, your personal journey, as well as some clients that gave you permission to share some of the extraordinary healing and just explosive synchronicities that are just that like catapult somebody from being stuck into a whole new paradigm. Um, you talk in the beginning of your book about how you came to Tarotpy, but at the end of your book, you give us this little peek into your childhood, which I thought was fascinating because I think
Mm.
sometimes we see an author like yourself that's won all these awards, you're this celebrated therapist and so successful. We don't think of the early years, the vulnerability and how this wisdom was hard earned. And so can you just let's go way back just for a minute about what it was like to be you
Sure.
as a little one.
Well, my early childhood was chaos because my parents were really struggling in their marriage, and um, there was a lot of drama going on where they really weren't able to attend to their three kids. And I created a false back in a closet with a suitcase and would put pillows behind it and then climb in and read for hours. And I was reading books like A Wrinkle in Time and the Narnia series that a lot of your audience will probably know. And my little heart really felt resonating with the truth of these stories, that there really are these other worlds, and that there's a much bigger mystical reality. And these worlds that these children entered into in these books were very much like dreams. They have a different time frame. They have no boundaries in time or space. That's very much like dreams. And somehow I knew that that was a bigger truth. And that's really honestly where I got started in understanding mystical realities. Although I wouldn't have put it that way as a child, I just resonated with these books. Um, and then many years later, I started my hero's journey because I ended a job in film, and I had been on a track to have a career in film. I ended a job and felt that I wasn't going to be working in film anymore. I ended an affair with the editor on the film, and my rental home was going to be sold. So I was in one of those places of upheaval where I had no job, no home, no boyfriend. And it was at that moment, because I had emptied myself of my plans and my constructs, that two strangers that summer handed me divination tools. One person handed me the I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese book of wisdom. And 2 weeks later, another stranger handed me the tarot. And both of these men said the same thing: you're supposed to walk with these. I had no idea what these divination tools were or what I was supposed to do with them. But at the end of that summer, I went and entered into a master's program in marriage and family therapy with the tarot tucked into one pocket and the I Ching in the other. And I didn't study the tarot tradition, but I began to experiment by applying psychology, hypnotherapy, family systems, everything that I was being trained in. I would just say, well, what happens if I play with cards and apply this to using the cards? And I began to discover with having these sessions that using imagery would bring up exactly what the issue was and bring up profound insights and promote shifts in people in one session that would take months to years of regular therapy. So I kept having these extraordinary experiences and very quickly decided that I had to integrate therapy into my clinical practice, which I've done for 35 years. And sometimes the accidents would teach me. I basically apprenticed myself to this material to just keep exploring. I was incredibly curious. And I would just say, well, what happens? And I would have an accident, like discovering that if somebody picked a deck out of a collection of decks, they would have more resonance with the images, but also there would be these extraordinary synchronicities, truly
Mm.
mind synchronicities. And that would awaken somebody to their deeper truth. So,
Wow. Yeah, your journey is so amazing, and I love that I think a lot of people can relate to feeling lost, feeling, being in some form of transition, even if it's just because they're rattled by the election or they're rattled by family members not getting along. We're coming up on the holidays if people are watching or listening in real time. So everybody's in some form of transition. And like you were, there was like the no boyfriend, no job, no, like, didn't know what you were doing. And then, but you went to a metaphysical bookstore. So you kind of put yourself in the way of where grace might take place. And it did. And then you paid
that's
attention to it as if it were a dream. You didn't just let the strange people you met kind of just not that they were strange, but kind of. I mean, it's a little odd
they
for
were
somebody to be like,
strange.
yeah, so I think you were treating your waking life like it was a dream and you paid attention. You didn't just blow it off like that
Yes.
was weird. Like I was telling you the other day when we got together when I got my dog Pearl, who's probably going to be acting up at some point soon, but there was a strange man at a party that that I knew I had to talk to, and he asked me where my dog was, and I said, "Oh, I don't, my dog passed away." And I thought I'd get some sympathy, but he said, "Where's your new dog?" And I said, "I don't have one." And then he, shame on you for being a dog lover and not having a dog." And I'm like, "What?" See, but there was some part of me that was thinking, this is divine. I knew I was needing to get a dog, but I was too heartbroken, too. But after that, basically, the series of synchronicities that followed, I got my dog. And I'm so grateful to have little Pearl. You can sort of see her in the background. I think my
No.
um okay, let's begin. Let's tie this back into collective dreaming. We're going to have
Okay.
somebody whose birthday it is today jumping on and joining us in a few. And but before then, so how do people know it's a collective dream? And can you program yourself to have a collective dream if somebody's like, "Hey, I want one of those?"
Well, I
So
think
let's
that we're probably all having collective dreams because
okay.
when things are heightened in our world, when things are in transition, we're affected by it. None of us live in a vacuum. So I have always worked with, when I teach, when I run dream groups, I always look at the collective aspect of the dream as well as the personal aspect because they're both there. So what I find with my groups is either doing therapy or dream work or both, is that there is a collective or mythological perspective to the cards that people are randomly pulling, as well as a personal perspective. It's just about shifting our lens to see what the collective is. Now, a big collective dream, like I said, it's going to be more vibrant than most dreams. It's
Mm,
going to have collective images in it, like the Eiffel Tower, like the Empire State Building. I was having a series of whale dreams. Again, we're dealing with how we're connected to nature, how we're connected to each other. We may see famous people in it that may be signaling a collective dream. So I run a monthly therapy group where every member of the group gets to pull cards. And what's extraordinary is people aren't necessarily thinking about what's happening collectively. They're wanting to know, what do I need to do with my life? What kind of guidance do I need here? And they'll pull cards, and yet they're pulling from multiple decks. They may have 5 images from 5 different decks, and yet there's a cohesive narrative that's taking place. And oftentimes it's showing images of what's happening in the collective, such as one of the layouts that somebody pulled about a year ago was, or maybe almost 2 years ago now, was when Russia went into Ukraine. And the image
mm,
that she pulled had this demonic figure with a black boot stepping on skulls and all
Wow.
kinds of images that were both Chinese and Russian and oppressive. But on the other side of her layout, she had this gentleman playing a cello, and the night sky could be seen through the cello as if it was transparent. So, what you had was toxic masculinity on one side and gentle divine masculinity on the other. And so you can
Oh.
see with Tarotpy layouts, you can see it with dreams, that they're trying to help us to find balance and resilience in the midst of these kind of upheavals.
Oh. Yeah, our dreams are never trying to hurt us or just tell us what we already know. They're trying to give us another perspective if we just had the ears to hear and the eyes to see, to behold them.
Right, right.
So, one of the things that you also talk about in therapy, in your book, is the ancestral aspect. So, there's the collective that's kind of about the globe, a global situation, the pandemic, 9/11, um, something like that. And then there's also our ancestral aspect. So, would you consider an ancestral dream? Would that be distinct from collective? Um, or how would you distinguish that?
Wow, that's a great question. I think they're probably overlapping because an
Mm.
ancestral dream is about our collective history,
Mhm.
is about our collective humanity, but maybe more specific to us in terms of our personal ancestry. So, well, I'll give you an example. I, for example, was raised as a Jewish kid in West LA, and the
Mhm.
mythology in my family was that whatever had happened in Europe had nothing to do with us.
Mhm.
I began to have dreams that were showing me Holocaust material. And one of those dreams was precognitive of my brother's death. And I understood when my brother died that the Holocaust was actually playing a role in my family. And all of a sudden, I could understand what I had earlier talked about, which is my parents' marital problems, suicidality in my family, chaos in my family, as having been ancestral trauma. But it was the dreams and therapy that led me to understand and then begin to explore what was this ancestral history. And my great grandparents on one side had been murdered in the pogroms, and on the other side in the Holocaust. So we can
Mm.
begin to understand our current life, our current situation, patterns in our life, if we look back and see what the ancestors had gone through, because very often the ancestors are living through us and
Right.
creating the patterns to get our attention.
Oh,
And once I could see what that family trauma was, I could look back and say to the ancestors, "Oh, I see you. I'm so sorry. I can send love to you." And the patterns change.
and you talk about in here in your book Therapy that you created an altar to them, something external, so it didn't have to take up residence inside your body. But the birthday girl I see just arrived, but I want you to tell us, I want to finish these slides that you brought and about more of the collective. So I'm going to pull this up. Can you talk about the ISIS aspect,
Yeah.
if
So
you would?
again, in this monthly therapy group, everybody picks cards sort of intuitively, just getting a sense of how many cards do I need to see. And we then take time for each individual to share their layouts and just talk about them as a group. So one of the group members pulled these two cards, and these cards are from two different decks, and yet if you can see them, the card on the right is an image of an Egyptian queen. She's got a bird on her head. And so I recognized her. And then, oh, there's also birds in the background carved into the wall. I recognized her as the bird queen. And that comes from the story of Isis and Osiris. And then if you look on the left, There's a boat. Oh, it's a little hard to see, but it is carrying a dead king. There's women dressed in black. They are helping to shepherd this boat across the river. And they're going to a queen who's standing in a temple, and she's also an Egyptian queen from an entirely different deck. Um, I'm going to describe this. I don't know if you can see the slight detail that the temple, the top of the temple, looks like a breast. So we're talking about the Great Mother. And this is the story of Isis and Osiris. Osiris was a good king, but his jealous brother murdered him and chopped up his body and threw it across the country. Isis, his beloved, was so bereft that she prayed to the birds to gather him up together and then prayed to the gods to bring him back to life. And Osiris became a king again, but in the underworld. So the story we're looking at right now is the death of the great father, the death of the good king, or in other words, the death of a patriarchy that has noble aspirations. And what we're seeing in our collective is we're seeing the death grip of a patriarchy that's in decline. So we're getting toxic masculinity. But part of that story is the uh, resurrection of the king in the spirit world or in the unconscious, and the rise of the feminine, who is now in the waking world developing a connection with that other world. So, part of the collapse that we're seeing or the shakeup that we're seeing isn't just political, it's a shakeup of the way that we have believed that the physical world is our only reality. What we're beginning to see is a unified world in which the spiritual, sacred world, the world where Osiris is also king, the divine masculine, is now partnering with the waking world and the divine feminine. Does that make sense?
That is so powerful, and I love the lyrical way you express it. It's so profound, and it's so the medicine that we need right now, or that I need. I feel like I need to listen to this over and over. And let's bring it to now, let's bring the collective all the way down to the individual. My friend Karina is here, and I'm going to get squish in a little bit closer. Get closer. So I was telling Karina all
Hi,
about,
Karina.
and
Nice to meet you.
it's a birthday for
Happy
her.
birthday.
Thank you.
And I want to give an example for people watching, what a little bit of what it's like to do therapy. So if she was, if this was a session, or if she had a question, what would we have? I have a whole bunch of my oracle cards. I don't have tarot cards, but I have oracle cards here. But if you have some as well, what would be a good way to rock and roll?
Okay, so first of all, I use and I encourage others to use tarot cards, oracle cards, dream cards, soul cards, whatever symbolic imagery deck they're attracted to. And the only guideline is to pick a deck that has evocative images for every card, because we're not approaching the images with a preconceived definition. We're looking at how do the details um, evoke feelings and associations for you personally. Okay, so
So
you begin by
taking a deck.
taking a deep breath
Oh, take a breath.
and take a breath.
Everybody take a breath.
And everybody. And just ask yourself, go inward and ask yourself, how many cards do I need to look at? And you'll get a number. And then you take another breath and ask yourself, how are they laid out? And see what shape would those cards take in your mind's eye if they were laid out on the table in front of you. Now you can shuffle the deck or decks and just let your intuitive urges guide you toward which deck you want to pull from. You can pull from anywhere in the deck, and you're going to put one card face down for each of those cards in your layout that you saw in your mind's eye.
She's opening up the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. I'll just show
F3, yes.
She's pulling
three.
This is this deck.
I got the answer to
beautiful.
Three cards from 3 different decks, and I'll show you the orientation in a moment.
Okay.
So the first one, should I do anything as I pull?
You want her to pull it looking at the images or with the face down?
Well, I trust that synchronicity and randomness is a way for the universe to participate with us and to put its 2 cents in. So I recommend you pull them face down and that you put them face down to begin with, so that you're allowing your unconscious to guide.
So now she's shuffling from the Wild Dream Animal Oracle. These all have a dreamy aspect to them.
These are all, by the way, Kelly Sullivan Walden decks. They're beautiful. I pull from them exclusively. I really, really, really adore them so much.
Ooh,
one flew out.
Okay. From the Dia de los Muertos.
If one just flew out and it was the first one to fly out, should I it came from the deck I was intending to put last. Should I leave that last, or should I
It came flying out, huh?
Yeah.
What would you like to do?
I think it's gonna be the card that means the future. Like, it's like at the top of I had an orientation where if I'm going backwards, it was like there's 1 here, 2 here, 1 there. That's how I pictured it, like an ascension.
Okay.
So I think this is at the top.
And it sounds like you're also sort of naming the placements. So I would also, if we're doing a full therapy session, I would also have you name the placements in your diagram. What you're doing is you're putting your unconscious on the table.
Great.
So that we can understand, just like with the dream, what's going on at the deeper level.
I love that. I think the instinct that I'm having is that the first card, the one at the bottom, is going to be deep subconscious. The one in the middle is going to be what I'm really kind of trying to play with. And I think the top one is how it's expressing in my life.
Okay. And when you say the middle one is what you're playing with,
in terms of what I'm trying to play with between, in therapy or like working on myself in my life, it's kind of like the bridge between what I can see from my unconscious and what I'm trying, or subconscious, and what I'm trying to work on and what I'm conscious of. It's that bridge between the 2 worlds of the conscious and the subconscious.
That's beautiful. Okay.
Okay, cool. All right.
So now you have all.
I'm pulling my last 2. From this deck. Oh, wow. Okay, great. And then the last one I'm pulling now. This one's gonna come out. Okay. Ooh, let's see.
Right. Now, can we show everybody?
Yeah.
All right. So the first one.
This one's the bottom subconscious placement.
Can you show the card?
Yeah, it's called Say Yes to Your Higher Calling.
Ooh.
It's from the first stage of, this is from the Kelly Sullivan Walden's Hero's Journey deck. And it's from the first stage, Answer the Call, I'm pretty sure. Be a human.
What do you see? What are the details?
Okay, great. I'm going to show this up. Actually, I'll describe it first. But it's a woman in a blue dress with her arm extending into the sun. You can see here, it's what really stands out to me is the contrast between the gold and the blue. What really stands out to me is like the beautiful patterns and the textures. What stands out to me is how she almost looks like she's like flowing from the sun while simultaneously merging with it and moving towards it. One of her legs is moving forward, stepping forward into that golden, just dripping, all-consuming light, and then one of hers is grounded back in the place where she's stepping from.
Okay, so as you're focusing on those things that really attract your attention, the flowing, the connection with the sun, the reaching forward for the sun and also being part of it at the same time. What is that like for you? What is that evoking in you? And the flowing of these colors, the turquoise, the blue.
It's definitely evoking a sense of like how disconnected I've been feeling from that golden sunlight, but also knowing that it's there, knowing that it's a part of me, but feeling like I've been really feeling that back foot in the blue. Like that's where I'm actually standing. And I want to just get back into my golden sunlight. I want my, like that front leg is golden and it shows like she can also be golden. Like that's also somewhere she belongs, and it evokes that in me, like the desire to want to just be in my full expression, in my element, in my joy, in my happiness, in my self-love.
Let's honor both. Let's honor where that back foot is in the blue, as well as the front foot stepping into the gold and the reaching for the gold. So if you can just sense into, does blue mean anything to you?
Water. And I dream a lot about water. Sadness. It really, the feeling of the blue, it does feel important too. And I'm aware like this card to me in a way symbolizes what it is to be human, to have one foot on earth and the other reaching towards all that we know is possible. And so the blue is also like the human experience of sadness, suffering, difficulty, but also the beauty that comes with life on this planet, which water to me is such a symbol of as well.
And you're wearing blue today. I'm wearing blue today. You've got a little blue under there. It seems like, yeah, isn't that interesting?
And blue is also, to me, it's also the color of the aura of the throat, so voice. And you're giving voice to something so human, that we all hold these polarities. Part of us in this emotional place that is maybe partly behind us because we're bringing our past in. And we're always reaching to the gold. We're always reaching toward our highest self. So you've beautifully described that. And now can you feel into the leg that's into the gold and the reaching and the sense of touching that gold?
Absolutely. And I do also want to share that my throat has been like, that's, yeah, first of all, it's totally been like a huge part of my healing. That's always where I feel tension, stress, but also release. And it's my birthday, as you know, and this whole week I've had like a throat cold. And so Kelly said it's like a clearing. So yeah, I love that you brought that in.
Yeah.
And she's a singer with
I wondered.
a glorious voice. And she may be singing today. Who knows if she's up to it? We'll see. But,
yeah, I love it. But thank
you.
So
again, honoring both of those, because to have that kind of a voice, to be a singer, the way that you move people, as you know, is to come from that deeply emotional place. So you have to have a foot in it.
That's a beautiful perspective. You're right, Lauren. That's beautiful.
Nice.
I love that. And I think I'm feeling into your question about the leg and the gold. And to me, to be honest, what's coming is like that kind of just feels like the afterlife. It's like eventually we go home. But right now my foot is here. And I don't know, there's another part that's like, there's another part of me that's like, yes, I can always be trying to step towards the sun and the light in this life, but also at the same time, I think from what I can see here, like, I don't see where she's able to ground her foot. Like she'd have to be able to float.
Oh.
So what I'm struck by, when you say the afterlife, is that this is all in one image. That touching into the gold is happening right now. Again, one of the reasons we're using a divination tool is to be able to bring the divine, the highest self, into our moments now and touch that divine sense of home in our waking world.
I love that.
Can I throw in one little reflection?
Yes.
Before
Please.
we got here, Karina, we were talking about this incredible collective dream that Lauren had about the Empire State Building collapsing, being on stilts, and and what just made me think of the like there was no place for it to stand. And we were talking about the message. One of the messages that came to Lauren was about the difficulty isn't where we're going or where we've been. It's in the transition. Can you say that again, Lauren?
Yeah. So the words that came up to me in the dream was, oh, this is what it is to die. It's only the transition that is scary.
Wow.
Right. So this to me
We,
feels like a woman in transition because she's not here, she's not there. She's got one foot in both places, so she's in flow. And the transition can be wonky and unstabilizing, but she doesn't look like she's freaked out about that. She looks quite comfortable in transition. Okay, I have to throw in one other thing I'm thinking of.
please.
Barbara Marx Hubbard, who just popped up for me recently, she passed away a few years ago. I got to interview her. I was the last interview she did. She talks about quantum evolution of our human species being related to the way we do transition. And she was using the metaphor of the caterpillar to the butterfly, and she said,
Yes.
when we break down from our caterpillar shell, our caterpillar comfort zone, we think it's so bad that we try to retreat, we try to reconnect with all the things that have been so familiar because we don't have a healthy relationship with change, with chaos, with transition. But she said if we became the quantum evolutionary humans, we would see transition. I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. And we would lean into it and we would know, oh, I'm butterflying. A butterfly wings like that. This is a good thing. We name it good. And so we move toward it. So instead of having to die daily, we can be reborn daily, and it can become, and transitions could be ecstatic. So
I'm getting goosebumps from what you're saying too, um, because I think we are in that kind of an evolutionary transition right now. I think we're in a stage in our world that is like when people thought the world was flat to
yes,
when the whole collective realized it was round. I think we've been stuck in a belief that the world is simply the physical. And I think we're moving into a unified consciousness in which, like your card shows, in which the divine world, the afterlife, and the human experience of having our feet on the ground in this life are integrated into one image, into one being, that we're holding both at the same time as reality.
I love that. I share that belief. I love it.
so just for the sake of time, because I know a typical therapy session would be a lot longer, but we've got just a few minutes. We've got like another 5 minutes. So shall we go on to the next card?
Do you have
Please.
time? Okay, great. The next one I pulled from the Animal Oracle deck. It's beautiful, this one right here.
Wild Dream Animal.
And I got the buffalo. Prosperity is the subtitle, which feels really powerful. It's interesting because that's definitely been, I think, one of the transitions in my life is going from like, what are the traps that I've been falling into with prosperity and how do I actually just break through or allow that transition to happen, like release what's, just the old beliefs. And when I look at this card, my first thoughts were what the buffalo represents to me. First off, actually, that kind of galactic stardust, it looks like our galaxy behind it. Like it makes me feel like it belongs to life. Like you're saying, like such a broader definition of life. When I think of buffalo, I think of strength, but also strength in numbers. They move together, they move in herds. I think of the fact that they're valuable in the sense that entire cultures revolved around following the buffalo and commodifying the buffalo. And so there's some sense of like others want what they just are.
It's just a way of being that's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And they're very protective and loving of their young ones and their own. Like I'm thinking of that kind of like safety in numbers as well.
So let's just reflect back exactly what you said. As this buffalo is looking at you, it's reflecting love, power, galactic perspective. It's individual. It's shown as an individual and very powerful, but it also, as you know, is strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And community. As I said in my first dream, we can't do this alone.
Oh, say that line again.
So
Yep, if you can, Robbie.
the self doesn't develop fully until one immerses oneself in the collective.
Wow. One more time, please. That was so profound. I need to record it in my brain.
The self doesn't develop fully until one immerses oneself in the collective.
Yeah.
So the buffalo is also a sacred animal. And if you can imagine this as a strength card, as your totem, as this buffalo being your totem animal, your ally, accompanying you, how does that feel?
It feels powerful, and the word that's coming to me, it's funny, I've been talking to Kelly about how one of my goals right now, my soul goal, as she calls it, is to strengthen my relationship with belonging. And I love that idea because to me, what the buffalo represent are also like they are native to this land that we're on, and they've gone almost extinct. But that doesn't mean that they're not still powerfully connected to this earth and they don't have the potential to rebound, and that.
And that's a very powerful statement, both for you personally, those times where you feel like you're sort of disappearing, or not visible to yourself, to the world, and that they can come back. And in fact, that's a collective reading also of your layout, because the buffaloes have come back from extinction and they're thriving. And that these sacred connections, this connection to nature, this connection to the sacred and the animals, to have that relationship with nature, is an indigenous way of being, and that is coming back.
Absolutely.
Can I throw in my little reflection here?
Please.
So this card, the buffalo, so Karina, if you don't mind me saying, Karina is from Moldova, which is borders Ukraine, and grew up in Canada as well. So the US is a newer country for her. But I liked, it feels like the buffalo in the God Bless America song, where the deer and the antelope and the buffalo, I don't know, maybe it's antelope, it doesn't say buffalo, but it's like, isn't there a buffalo in that song? Maybe not, maybe it's antelope. Okay, but it feels like it's one of those, like it's been here from the beginning. It's yes. Americana, and it feels like it's. And I didn't grow up. I spent time in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where there was a lot of buffalo that roamed near where I lived. And one thing that I remember hearing about them is that when the storms come, they don't budge. Like the storm just kind of moves around them. They don't get toppled over. They stand. The storm, like it's like we're not going anywhere. We're here. So there's this strength to survive a storm as well. And I want to just throw in the artist here. This is Lisa DeSemini, and Rasuli was the artist of this one. I got to give props to these incredible artists. So yeah, buffalo. Yeah.
And so again, part of what I just want to highlight is that this is how we become more strengthened in community, because it's these reflections that you're getting from both Kelly and I, right? It isn't just you having to figure it out.
Everybody who's watching, because this is rare that you do a typical session that's one-on-one, but the fact that it's even being done in public right now. This is for anybody who's listening. This isn't about, oh, it's just Karina. I think Karina is pulling it for everybody. Dare we say that?
Absolutely. And so we're hearing both the individual guidance, but we're also hearing guidance for the whole culture.
Yeah.
Right? For everybody listening, about being able to survive these storms, about being able to come back from near extinction. Do we have time to see your last card?
The last one.
The last one quickly. All right, this one's from Dia de los Muertos. It's a beautiful deck that Kelly's also done. And
Emily K. Greaves is the artist.
And es La Llorona.
La Llorona.
Oh, I thought I saw 2023. And I saw that backwards, and I thought it was how do you pronounce it?
La Llorona. She's the weeping woman. She's the woman who just at Dia de los Muertos. Well, it's a very tragic story, but I feel like there's this hopeful aspect. Are you familiar with La Llorona, Lauren?
No.
So, okay, here's a long story short. Beautiful young girl, poor girl living in this little pueblo. A very wealthy man comes to town and kind of sweeps her off her feet. She falls in love, gets pregnant. He leaves, comes back with his wife, and they're all upper crust, and he ignores her. She's got 2 babies from this man, and she begs him to not leave her, but he does. And in her fit of grief, there's a bright side to the story, so hang on. She drowns her children and is so remorseful. She comes out of what she just did, and she can't stop howling and grieving, and she takes her own life. And so the lore is like, instead of the boogeyman in our culture, it's like, be careful or La Llorona will get you. But here's on the I would say the inspiring side of it, because she knows deep grief, and she expresses it. And the river of her sorrow is deep. And during Dia de los Muertos, when they do these stage expressions of La Llorona, she comes out, and I want to sob just thinking about it. She cries and wails, and the whole audience wails and cries with her. Our culture is so much like, oh, you grieve and you cry a little bit, dab off we apologize for our tears, and then we just suck it back in. But she gives us permission to just howl and grieve and move the energy out. So it is very much collective. It's when I think about La Llorona, I love her because sometimes I've been known to suck up my tears. But when I think about her, I think, what if I'm not just crying for me? What if when I do let myself cry, it's for the ones who can't cry, or the ones who don't have permission to cry, or don't have the wherewithal to cry? So it's like moving that grief out in a sacred way so that everyone benefits. I mean, that's kind of the positive spin on it. Someone's crazy for saying all that, but that's my experience.
When you hear how important that is to what we're all experiencing right now, and also that it's Dias de los Muertos, that when you're dealing with the death of a way of life that we've known, when you're dealing with the upheaval of, let's say we are in the decline of an empire, there is grief. When you tell that story, we can hear certain themes we're dealing with in our culture right now, in terms of a very wealthy person throwing aside somebody who is from a poorer class. There's so many things we could touch on right now, but that ability to grieve. And the fact is, she's also standing in a portal.
Yeah.
So again, you're talking about the hallway. We're talking about a portal. We're in this portal right now. Yeah. And grieving may be exactly what we need to do collectively.
Ooh.
As a way of aligning all of our hearts.
Lauren, earlier, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
You shared about when you came in your book, in your therapy book, you shared about creating the altar for your loved ones. Maybe there's an altar. If it's my dream, I might create an altar to my grief, and to the grief that is that's moving through me, so that it doesn't have to necessarily only live in here. So the ones that can't cry, the ancestors, maybe there's a sacred place to put them. What would you say about that, Lauren?
Well, what you're bringing up for me, Kelly, is now going back to the first card, which is the importance of having one foot in the deep waters, in the emotional realm. And that what we're talking about is also leaning into the feminine, right? Where we can, this is a feminine guide showing us that we need to grieve and that we need to let go of the patriarchal framework that many of us have adapted to, which is
Ooh.
to always be functioning, to always be looking for success, to always be looking to move on, and how important that emotional realm is for us to feel the feminine. And now we come back to Isis,
Yes, we do.
right?
Yeah.
And how powerful that grief is to bring about new life.
Right. Her tears also are part of what brings Horus together. And right.
Exactly.
In the
Exactly.
background, there's a volcano in the background that's erupting, and volcanoes also, they erupt and they destroy at first, and there's a lot to grieve, but then they also create the surface for life.
Yes. Oh my God.
They create new land.
Recently. Oh my God. Okay. I don't want to wrap this up ever, because on a parallel plane, I think we'll just keep going and going. This is so deep and so juicy. Lauren, I know people are going to be curious about your next workshop or your online event, your free event, about how people can take a deeper dive into tarot. What's the best way people can find out about you and find out about this wonderful
So if you go to my website, which is dreamsandtarotpy.com, I have an event right now coming up December 7th, which is a free introduction to therapy workshop where people get to see some of these amazing cases, and then they're going to get a chance to pull cards as well and get together with each other and reflect on them. There's a few spaces left in that December 7th workshop, and then I'm going to be offering another one December 28th. So it isn't on my website yet, but to keep checking the website, it'll be there. And then I'm going to be doing a training in the new year. I'm training therapists and lay healers in the Tarotpy method. And it's an 8-week class over 4 months, and they will come out as certified Tarotpy practitioners.
Lauren Z. Schneider. Every time I'm with you, it's just a deep dive in both the light and in the depth of the human experience. And Karina, thank you so much for sharing your birthday with us and letting us take a dive deeply with you.
Thank you. This feels so perfect. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Lauren. I'm excited to meditate.
I'm so delighted to be able to do this on your birthday. So
I hope everyone goes out and gets the book, this award-winning book. It won the Nautilus Award. It's such a beautiful book, and there's so many amazing images in here. It is a work of art. This is something that is, I believe it's a legendary book, something that will be around for millennia. So thank you, Lauren Z. Schneider. I so appreciate you. Until we meet again. You know what? I'm going to let you just give everybody one last word of wisdom to take with them as we wrap up.
Wow, to just know that we are made whole and resilient, and that this is what we're doing. We're working with our dreams, we're working with Tarotpy divination tools in order to get in touch with that divine and inherent resilience within all of us.
And the transitions don't have to be so hard if we know what's on the other side is something.
Well, and also if we do these kind of things in groups, because we all have wisdom that we can reflect and share with each other. So, yeah, this is so beautiful to be able to do it with both of you. Thank you
so much. And until we all meet again, don't take your dreams lying down. Thank you for listening to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show. If you enjoyed this episode, take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, and share it with your friends. My show can be found on Apple iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to order my new book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, go to your favorite online or brick and mortar retailer, then head on over to kellysullivanwalden.com, tragic to magic. Input your order number and redeem your bonus gifts. I'm also excited to be offering a DreamWork practitioner training. So if that calls to you, go to kellysullivanwalden.com/DreamWork. If you'd like to join me for the live recording of these shows, most Wednesdays at noon Pacific, you can find me on Facebook at Kelly Sullivan Walden Dreams. If you have a question about your dreams or about how to transform your tragic into magic, email me at kelly@kellysullivanwalden.com. Until next time, remember, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And as you awaken to the power of your dreams, you make the world a lighter, brighter, more beautiful place, one dream at a time. Sweet dreams.